follow Cody. In high school, you can stay in here.
All right. We are in part 2 of our series, Casual Christianity. If you missed last week, we talked about how a lot of times we are casual in our walks with Christ, and that a casual walk with Christ is not what he is calling us to. He's calling us to be madly, deeply in love with him and to walk after him with our hearts and with our lives. Part 2 of this series that we're going to kind of dig into is about our witness. All right, so we're talking about our witness. What does that really mean? Well, witness is kind of a twofold word. It can be taken as a noun or a verb. I was an English major in college, so this stuff brings like satisfaction to me. But as a noun, the word witness means to see something take place. It means that we see something take place. As a verb, it means that there is evidence of something, right? So to see something take place so that there is evidence of something. And for Christians, for followers of Christ, it means to literally to profess one's faith. So we as Christ followers, we basically take the verb and the noun and combine it because we have seen something take place and we are here to show people the evidence of what has happened. To be a witness, you have to be in the vicinity to see. All right, in order to witness something take place, you have to be in the vicinity to see it happen. If we aren't around what God is up to, it is more difficult for us to encounter and see him move and work in the lives of others and in our own lives. I don't want you to get confused by that statement. God does seek us first. All right, God does seek us first. I don't want you to think that God is something that you can hopelessly just seek after and at some point find on your own, because you cannot find something that you don't even know that you're looking for. If you were in complete and total darkness and had never seen the light, if darkness was the only thing that you have ever known and you wandered around in darkness for your entire existence, you would never find light because you have no idea what light looks like, right? The only way, if you're wandering in darkness, for you to encounter light is for light to show up, right? And show you what it is. It's the same way in our walks with God. We wander in darkness and he reveals himself to us. You can't find something that you don't even know how to look for. But in order to be a witness and witnessed, we must be in the midst of what he is doing, right? We must be near to him. So in order to fully witness, we must be in position to see something to share. And sadly, for a lot of us, we aren't even in that place. We want to share something that we've never experienced on our own. A lot of you have a faith that belongs to your mom or your dad or your friends. And you need to understand that that faith is not their faith, it's yours. Right? God's not called you to inherit someone else's beliefs. God's called you to long for him and to love him in your own life. This is something for you to own. This is something for you to walk in. This is something for you to experience and journey and believe because of what has taken place in your life, not the life of someone else. Right? This is a personal encounter, so that's where we want to start tonight. You can't speak of a faith that doesn't belong to you because you don't own it. right? You can't talk about a faith that doesn't belong to you because it's not yours. You have to know what you're looking at. This brings me back to the Pharisees, right? These guys were the religious elite in their communities. They were admired, they were looked up to, and they were set apart because of their quote-unquote faith. But whenever Christ entered the scene in the New Testament and the Pharisees were presented with him, they looked in the face of God and called him an idiot and called him a liar and told him that he did not know what he was talking about. So these overly religious people did not know Jesus when he stood right in front of them. And I think that's where a lot of us are in our pursuits of God. They knew God, but they didn't have a relationship with him. A lot of us know of God, but don't have a relationship with him. It's kind of like me and LeBron James, right? Like, if you ask me questions about LeBron, I can tell you loads of facts on LeBron. I can tell you different kinds of stats. I can tell you different championships. I can tell you MVPs. I can tell you all kinds of different things because I love basketball and I know about this guy. But I've never met him in my life. Right? I do not know him personally. There's a big difference between knowing of someone and knowing someone. And a lot of you know of God, but you don't know him. All right? And at surface value, you're like, whatever. But if you really think about that, a lot of you know a lot of information, but you don't have a relationship. And that is where so many American Christians are. We have this comfortable faith that we got from a friend or our mom and our dad. We know the verses, we know the answers, we sing the songs, but we would not know Jesus if he was sitting next to us in this room. Right? So what we have become is an extremely religious person that doesn't have a relationship with the Creator that is helplessly in love with us. He sought you out to make you his. Right? Let that sink in. The Creator of the universe, the God over all, the one that didn't need anything, but he chose to love you. He chose to seek you out. He chose to send his son. He chose to extend grace to you and give you an opportunity to even know him, knowing that 90% of the population to ever walk the face of this planet would spit in his face and say no. But he chose to extend you that love anyway, and he loved you before you even had an idea that he existed. He came for you. He wants a relationship with you, not a religious experience. And so many of you seek religious experiences. You seek religious highs to make you feel better about this hole that you have in your heart that's meant to be filled with Christ, a legitimate relationship with him where you walk through life with him. Jesus is so much bigger than a religious experience. He's so much bigger than a religious experience. He's closer than any brother. He's better than any friend. He'll love you more than anything in the history of creation because he in and of himself is love, right? So in order for us to effectively share our faith and be a witness for God, we have to know him authentically. You have to witness something. You have nothing to share if you've seen nothing. Like if you're a witness in trial and you show up and they're like, so what did you see? And you're like, nothing. Then you're a worthless witness, right? You saw absolutely nothing. So you, as a witness, as a Christ follower, what have you seen? What have you seen? How has God moved in your life and in the lives around you? Can you think of anything? Right? You don't have to say it out loud, but actually think. Can you think of anything of God moving in your life or lives around you? If you can think of nothing, you probably need to refer back to the original point that we talked about. Because God is moving in your midst. Right? God's at work in your life. If you're someone who has put their faith, hope, and trust in Christ, you've seen a great move in your life already because he saved you. Right? That's a move of God. So if you can't think of anything, then there is a chance that you don't know him. Right? Like there is a chance that you're just a religious person that shows up and goes through the motions and doesn't have an authentic relationship with the God that gave everything for you. And the fact of the matter is, if that is the top level of your religious experience, then you don't get it. Right? You don't get it. Because he did not die for a religious experience for you. He died for you to know him, right? God is writing a beautiful story, and he is inviting us in. He is inviting us to be a part of it. He's moving in your midst, and he's moving in your life. And the fact of the matter is this: whether you are at the lowest of lows, the highest of highs, or somewhere in between, whether you feel horrible or this is the best day you have ever had, whether you've had a story of ridiculous redemption where God has literally pulled you out of the pit and sat you in front of him and said, hey, I love you, or you've grown up in church and this is something that you've heard your entire life, you need to understand something. If you're a follower of Christ, you have a story to tell. If you're a follower of Christ, you have a story to tell. And you need to share what you've witnessed. Or you need to share what you've witnessed, share what you've seen, share what you've experienced, because stories are a beautiful thing. In fact, we all love a good story. You may not like to read them, but you love a good story. They resonate in our souls. They bring us satisfaction and fulfillment. Like for me, when I watch Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, like all the way through, it brings me satisfaction, right? Because when you watch a movie or a series or read a series like Harry Potter, you see that that would be what we considered in literature an epic, right? And so you're seeing this story that begins here literally go all the way to here, right? Over the course of however many movies. You see the highest of highs, you see this journey, you see darkness attempt to win, and then you see redemption, and then you see victory in the end, right? In the story of Harry Potter, and sort of the same with Lord of the Rings. Stories like that bring me satisfaction, because what I've done is in watching those and in reading those, I have witnessed an epic take place from start to finish, and I am so drawn to that. Right? I'm not saying that all of you are going to love Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, but we are all drawn to a good story. Have you ever wondered why? Like, have you ever considered why you're drawn to a good story? Why you are drawn to this epic, right? This story from beginning to end. Why are you drawn to it? It's because you are a part of the greatest story of all time, right? You're literally living in the greatest story of all time, and you in and of yourself, a story is who you are, right? You in and of yourself are a story. You are written by God, and in his overarching story, we're living in the middle, but thanks to his word, we already know the end. You have an overarching story to share that is the gospel, right? The good news, but you also have a personal story to share of what he's doing in your life. So question: if we have this news to share, if we have this story, this overarching God's story, right, and then your story, if we have those things to share, then why are we so casual in our witness? Why are we so casual in sharing it? Why do we not take captive the moments that we have with other people? Why do we not share the cure to death that we possess? Because the fact of the matter is this: we do not have a cure to cancer. We do not have a cure to diseases that take life. We cannot stop freak accidents that we can't explain. We can't control how long we or other people are on this planet. But you, as a child of God, hold the cure to death in your heart. And you have all the freedom in the world to share it. All right? You literally hold the cure to death, and you have all the freedom in the world to share it. So why do we not? Why do we not share that good news? Our overarching verse for this series tells us to live as Christ and to die as gain. But the verse before that really sets the table. All right, it says this: according to my earnest expectation and my hope, that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but that with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether it be by life or by death, right? And that is a Christ-centered life, right? That is what we should be striving for. But instead of Christ being the center of our lives, a lot of us have the tendency to treat him like the friend that we are embarrassed to talk to in public, right? We even bring this ideology that our halfway witnessing is better than no witnessing, and that is dead wrong. Okay, halfway witnessing points to a partial commitment in your walk. But understand, I'm not telling you that we can be perfect in our witness or trying to guilt trip you into a pit of misery and despair. I'm trying to show you that we all have so much work to do in being an effective witness for God. For me personally, when I encounter people, the thing at the forefront of my mind is not, does this person know Jesus? And that is a convicting thing for me. Because I have to teach this stuff to myself before I can teach it to you. And so when I'm going through this stuff and I'm talking about this to myself in my head, I'm like, Tyler, like, when you see someone, what's the first thing that you think? And it was definitely not, does this person have a relationship with Jesus Christ? When in reality, that's the outlook that we should have for people. We shouldn't be weird and not get to know the people whatsoever and just walk up and say, hey, do you know Jesus Christ? Like, no, get to know the people by all means before asking that question, but are we even remotely concerned about the salvation of people that we come into contact with? Because oftentimes I think for your generation and for my generation, we care a lot more about what people think about us than the truth that we need to share with other people. We care a lot more about the eyes looking at us than the people that we see personally, okay? And God has a totally different perspective than the perspective that we're looking through, because through God's lens, every single person matters. Every single person deserves an opportunity to know him. Every single person should be treated with kindness, treated with grace, treated with love, and ushered into a potential relationship with Jesus. We need to really learn to meet people where they're at, show them the love of God, get to know them, and say, hey, I love you. But the love that I have for you does not compare to the one that I know that gave his life for you, right? We need to learn how to honestly approach people about the gospel. So what I want to do, we're not done yet, so sorry, but I want to invite you to join me tonight, because this is something that I need to do, in laying down our comfort at God's feet and taking on the discomfort that he is offering in being bold in our witness, right? I told you a few weeks ago, Christ has not called you to be comfortable, and that's a fact. All right, Jesus Christ, all through this book, tell me one person that comfortably followed Jesus in this. There's not one, right? There are people giving up their lives, their livelihood, their friends, their family, everything that they own. There are people that are tortured. There are people that are in prison. There are people that are murdered all through this book for their faith. And I'm going to be honest with you. I do not want to comfortably pursue Christ anymore. I don't want to comfortably pursue him. I don't want to casually pursue him. I want to pursue after him with everything that I have, whatever it costs, whatever it looks like. And I want to invite you to join me in on that. I'm not asking you to stand up. I'm not asking you to raise your hands. I'm not asking you to do anything weird. But what I'm asking you to do is just everyone to bow your heads. And if you can even remotely relate to what I've been saying, I just want you to pray with me right now, because I want us to pray to be uncomfortable in our witness for God. Pray to see people as someone of value. Pray to be that bold witness that God has called us to be. And after we do that, we're going to see how we can practically do that with our whole hearts. So God, whoever in this room is with me in this, we just come before you right now. And God, we just want to lay down this comfort that we've been clinging to. God, we want to lay down anything that we've done to take away from being a bold witness for you, God. I pray that you would just empower us and enable us to be uncomfortable in our walk with you. God, I just pray that you would place people in our paths, Lord, that we can get to know, that we can love the way that you love us, and that we can share your good news with. And God, I pray that we would be obedient and that we would walk in that and pursue those people because they are worth it, because you say they are. So God, I just pray that for those of us that have been casual in our witness, God, I pray that that would end tonight. And I pray, Lord, that we would pursue you in a real, tangible way, love you in a real, tangible way, and present you in a real, tangible way to everyone that we come into contact with. It's in your name. Amen. So how do we practically do that? Well, there are a few instances of it in Scripture. Acts 22:15 says this, "For you will be a witness for him to everyone of what you have seen and heard." So we learn to view every person as a person of value. All right, a person deserving of good news, because we did nothing to deserve the opportunity to receive the gospel. There's nothing that you did in your life to qualify you to be born of the family that you were born in, to show up at this church when you showed up at this church, and to hear the good news that you have been presented with. Right? There was nothing that you could do to control that. There's nothing you could do to deserve the grace of God. So our response is to freely extend that to others. We freely share our story. But what do we say? Right? A lot of us will sit back and we'll say, well, yeah, that sounds good, like to talk to people about it, but what do I say? And the answer to that is easy. It's the execution that's hard. We share what God has done in our lives, and we share the gospel. That is the best place for us to start. All right? And you're like, but what next? Worry about starting it first. All right? If we'll step out in a little bit of boldness, if we'll step out in a little bit of faith, God will provide after that. But I think for a lot of us, if we could just step out and engage with people, God will lead God and direct you through that process, because God doesn't need you to save people. All right? God does not need you to save people. God can take care of it on his own. He's inviting us in and giving us an opportunity to share his good news and be a witness for him. You don't believe me? There are people in the Middle East right now in areas that we have not had very much mission work be able to be infiltrated into, who are literally encountering Jesus Christ in visions during their sleep and are coming to a saving faith in him with absolutely no missionary work whatsoever. He doesn't need you, but he wants you. Right? He doesn't need you, but he wants you. And that is beautiful. Share what he's done in your life. Share the good news. Begin with that. Second, 1 Corinthians 7:23. You were bought with a price. Do not become bondservants of men. Understand that God paid a price for you to be free. Right? God paid a price for you to be free. He sent his only perfect Son to take your place. And he paid the ultimate price for your freedom. And for me, I believe that should motivate us to share good news. If I have a God that loved me enough to die for me, the least I can do is tell his story and tell my story. Right? So allow what he's done for you to motivate you to be more like him and share his truth. Ephesians 4:29 says this, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." Know that you are a witness with far more than your testimony and the gospel. In fact, your life is your biggest witness. Right? The way that you live your life is your biggest witness. You were set apart. You were made brand new. So the fact of the matter is, you should not speak and act and behave like everyone else that you know. You shouldn't do everything that everyone else does in your school. You should seek to reflect Christ in all things. One of my favorite pastors, Levi Lesko, said this: if Jesus is Lord of your life, he should be Lord of your lips too. Let that one sink in. if Jesus is Lord of your life, he should be Lord of your lips too. And a lot of you guys are like, well, like, what makes certain words that bad? Like, language is language, right? There is this viewpoint, right, that's running amok through your all's culture that says words are words and they have no weight. Then why, when I insult you, does it hurt your feelings? If words have no weight, if words mean nothing, then I should be able to say whatever I want to you and it not resonate anything within your being. I should be able to look you in the eyes, tell you that you are repulsive looking and that I hate your guts, and it will do absolutely nothing to your heart if words carry no weight. But the fact of the matter is, words do carry weight. The old slogan, right, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is a load of crap. Okay? It's a load of crap. The fact of the matter is this: there's so many of you that focus in on like 8 words that you should not say ever in the context of anything. And guess what? You're right. There are curse words that you should not use. And you're like, why? They're just words. No, because in our world, those words are identified as bad. So when you use words that are identified as bad or sinful, you then look like everyone else. Right? There's nothing setting you apart in the way that you talk and the things that you say. So at what point then do you look like Christ in your communication? You don't. But language goes so much deeper than that. We're going to do like a long study on this sometime. But the real problem is the heart and intention of the things that you say. Right? So many of you guys are like, well, I don't cuss, but you'll throw oh my God out there 50 times a day. Right? You just took the Lord's name in vain. Right? But you'll get so much more upset over a word that was said than the fact that you just used the most reverent name in the universe to refer to the fact that you're upset. Like, think about it. Does that make any sense? No. Right? And then so many of us use certain words to substitute other words to communicate frustration. And it's like, how much worse is this word really than this word? Right? The real issue is the heart behind what you say. When God tells us to control our tongue, the real thing he is communicating to us is, hey, there's a rudder on a ship and it's small. Same way with your tongue. Compared to the rest of your body, it's not that big, but it has the power to control your life. Right? It has the power to control your existence. It has the power to break other people. So watch what you say. Right? Watch the words that you say. Examine the intent of the things that you communicate. And don't allow your frustrations, don't allow the wickedness that's going on within you to be communicated out of your mouth. Keep your mouth shut. Some of you need to learn to shut up. And I don't mean that in a rude way, but some of you need to learn that, man, whenever I get frustrated, whenever I get angry, whenever I'm at the point where I'm going to stumble and I'm going to be a stumbling block to somebody else with something that I'm going to say, don't say anything. Don't say anything. You're not going to be perfect in that, but strive for it. That was a tangent. Let that be true in your life. If Jesus is Lord of your life, he should be Lord of your lips too. 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with what? Gentleness and respect. Remain in the word. All right, remain in the word. I was talking with Alex and Cody earlier, and there's going to be seasons of your life. Before I came here, I went through like a 2-year period that I would consider a desert for me spiritually. We were talking about like spiritual deserts earlier. And I was like, God, like, I'm spending all this time and energy investing into people and trying to bring them closer to you and speak truth into their lives. Why do I feel this dryness? Why do I feel like I'm in the desert and I've been poured out and nothing is being poured into me? And there are some of you that are in a season of your life where you're like, spiritually, I am dry. God is not dry. All right, God is not dry. Cody said earlier, like, if anything, he is a well that runneth over. All right, But I can now look back and see that I went through a dry season so that I could be with people in their dry seasons. Right? God took me through a desert so that I would know what the desert felt like. There was another instance in my life where about a year ago, I literally went through depression for probably 4 or 5 months. And I am probably one of the least depressed people in the entire world. Like, I don't have anything to be anxious or depressed about, but I entered into this season of anxiety and depression, and I didn't even realize that I got to that place when my blood pressure was up here. I was not doing very well. And what had happened was, is a joke, well, not a joke, it's a trick that the enemy plays on us. He wants to make anxiety and make depression feel so normal that you forget what normal feels like. Right? He wants to take you to a place, it's like having a fader switch on a light. The enemy's not going to throw you into the darkness all at once because you'll immediately realize that you're there. But if he can throw you into a well-lit room and slowly drop the darkness so that your eyes will adjust and you won't realize where you're at, that's how he traps you. All right, that's how he works. He wants to ease you in. And I remember getting in my car, and I talked to one of my friends who is a therapist, and I was like, bro, I don't know what the heck's wrong with me. And we talked, and I realized that there were some things that had happened in my past that I hadn't really addressed, that I had essentially taken a Band-Aid and put it on a wound that was way too big for a Band-Aid, and I kept just slapping Band-Aids on it, and I never really surrendered it to the Lord's feet. And I got in my car, and I was like, God, I have absolutely no reason to be anxious. I have absolutely no reason to be depressed. I don't know why I feel this way, but I know that it's not from you. And I want you to take it now. And I'm not saying that this happens for everyone, but in that moment, he took it away from me. And in that moment, I was no longer depressed. I was no longer anxious. I was back to the way that I was. And that was another season that I looked at, and I was like, why did I go through that? The answer is obvious, so that I would be able to talk to people that are experiencing long-term effects of mental health. Because the fact of the matter is this: mental health is only half of it in that battle. Right? Your mental health, your spiritual health, and your physical health all go hand in hand. So whenever your mental health is trash, examine your spiritual life and see what's going on there. Examine your physical life and see what's going on there. Because odds are you're being attacked spiritually. But you don't even look at that aspect of it because you have mental health preached over your society every single day. But man, there are 3 portions of health in your life. Examine the things that are happening in your life and give that anxiety, stress, depression, different things that you're going through to him. And also, if you're a person that says, I'm dealing with so much anxiety, don't do that. Right? Like, can I just tell you something? Anxiety is not cool. It's not something that you want. It's not something that you should wish on yourself. It's not something that you should classify and say like, oh gosh, guys, like, just feeling super anxious today. No. Like, there's a big difference between anxiety and being a little worried about something, okay? The 2 terms are not interchangeable, and you have the opportunity to hurt someone with the way that you're communicating that. All right, anxiety is no joke. So, remain in the Word, remain in communication with him. You cannot back up what you say if you have no idea what you're talking about. All right, in your walk with God, it's really hard to talk about him if you don't really know him. You cannot back up what you say if you have no idea what you're talking about. Last 2 points and we're done. Colossians 3:17. Whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. This is super straightforward. Live a life that seeks to do everything for the glory of God. Live a life that seeks to do everything for the glory of God. And last but not least, the Great Commission, Matthew 28:16-20. The 11 disciples went to Galilee to the mount to which Jesus had directed them, and when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you. And behold, I'm with you always to the end of the age. Remember, the gospel is intended for all people. So in your witness, in your being a witness for Christ and witnessing to others, remember this one statement. Take this away if you don't remember anything else. Become a person that will go wherever, speak to whoever, and do whatever it takes to reach someone for the gospel. All right, that should be our aim in our pursuit of him. We need to aim to become people that will go wherever, speak to whoever, and do whatever it takes to reach someone for the gospel. I'm going to pray us out real quick, and then you guys are dismissed. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Lord, I just pray that you would just break down walls in our lives over the next few weeks. God, that if we have struggles, if we have things that we're dealing with and going through that are hard for us, that we're confused, that we don't know what to do, that we would communicate those things, that we would talk to somebody, that we would seek someone out, Lord, just to find guidance on that, to find clarity on that, to find assurance on that, Lord, so that we can better pursue you. I thank you for the way that you love us. I thank you that we have an opportunity to be a witness for you, to share your story, to share our stories. God, I just pray that you would move in our midst over the next few weeks. I pray that every single person in this room would somehow be able to attend Disciple Now. I don't mean that as an advertisement thing, God. I just mean that I truly believe that you're going to move in a crazy way over the course of that weekend, and I don't want anybody to miss it. So, Lord, I pray that you would just bring us all together at that. I pray you'd bring us all together this Sunday, and I pray you'd bring us back together here next week to worship you and to dig into more of who you are. And I thank you for every single person that's here, and it's in your name. Amen. Thank you, guys. Have a good week.